Hey guys, in this tutorial we're going to be exploring the differences between the V1 and the V2 shaders for the Indigo plugin in iClone. So we're going to talk a little bit about stuff like auto-convert, specular, and glossy transparent. But let's start off with these flamethrowers here, these cool looking flamethrowers that we have courtesy of our developer Warlord. You can find these in the marketplace in his weapons pack. But let's go ahead and give these a quick render in Indigo and see how these show up in Indigo as opposed to iClone. You'll see right away that the handles of our flamethrowers seem to be a bit blinged out. They look like a very polished chrome look. Maybe if you're some sort of kind of flashy gangster, you'd be kind of, walking around with things like this. But maybe for more practical uses, we'd want to kind of tone down that specular highlight a little bit. Maybe make the handle a bit rougher and everything like that. So let's take a look at why these handles are so shiny when they look so dull in iClone. So I'm going to go Alt-Tab back to iClone here. And you can see, I'm just going to take a look at the top handle here. So go to our Materials tab again, and we'll just scroll all the way up. And you can see we have our diffuse channel. I'm just going to press the B hotkey, use our material picker here, and select our handle just to make sure. Okay, so there's our diffuse map. And then we have a reflection map with a strength of 25. And that reflection map is what's creating that specular highlight that you saw in Indigo. And you can see our specular and glossiness values are pretty negligible. And basically, our reflection value is creating that entire reflection. So if we increase that strength on that reflection value, it would be super reflective. Let's just go ahead and do the opposite. Let's take the reflection value and just trash it right here. And let's give that another quick render and see what this one looks like in Indigo. So with this example here, you'll notice that the specular highlights are all gone from the handle there. We get the a much rougher look. There's not really any highlights going on to speak of. We have no specular values and no reflection maps. So in this, the focus of this topic is basically, trying to recreate this chrome look simply with our specular, our glossiness, and specular values. And I'll show you how that works in just a moment. Let's go ahead and stop this one and close this one down. I think we can just go ahead and close the other one down as well. So we're saving some system resources. Get that nice reflection off those handles right there. But we'll render some other ones really quick here. So let's take a look at this handle, and let's select our diffuse map and go all the way down to our specular and glossiness values. So take a look at these charts first. You can see that the higher your specular value is, the higher your IOR, your index of refraction value is, and these correspond exponentially. Whereas V1, they were actually they had a linear relationship, so they went straight from the bottom left to the top right. In V2, we have more of an accurate representation of what you see in iClone, and this is the result here, this graph. The same goes with glossiness values. If you take a look at the glossiness value chart, you can see that the higher the glossiness, the higher the exponent value as well. So if you recall exponent value, the higher the exponent value, the smoother your surface is. So if we wanted to create something like we had on this bottom flamethrower right here with that, very nice specular highlight, we'd probably want to have a pretty decent specular highlight, maybe something at about 500. And you can see the result, what it looks like in iClone. We really don't want that. So let's increase our glossiness. Let's take that down to something like 70. So this is basically the way it would look in iClone, corresponding to what we'd see in Indigo on the bottom one. So the bottom one, you can see the reflection map was not completely accurate, but our auto-convert from the specular and glossiness values might be a little bit more so. So let's go ahead and give that a value of 70 and give this a quick render and see how these two objects compare. So now you can see in the top one, we basically have the same reflective values as the one on the bottom right here. So that's a really nice, reflection going on. The high glossiness value of 70 makes it look a lot smoother. We could maybe, boost that up to 80 or something to make it look a little bit smoother. But I think that's a fairly, good comparison right there. And that's just, achieving the same thing with the reflection map of value 25 and messing around with your specular and glossiness values and auto-converting that into the Indigo values. And if I, pick the material right here, you'll be able to see we have the IOR of 3.5, which I guess would correspond to our specular value of 500. And if we go down, we can see we have the exponent of 1099, which I guess would correspond with, I think it was 70. We can go ahead and stop and check. Yes, we have the specular or rather the glossiness of 70 and the specular of 70 right there. Now, say for example, we wanted to make this top one look a little bit, we want to make the handle look a little bit more, rough around the edges. We still want the specular highlight, so we'll leave the specular at about 500 there. Let's take our glossiness down to something like 40 and take a look at what this looks like now. So let's go ahead and render this, give this one a quick render. And you'll see that the specular highlight is a lot more distributed. So we get that kind of brushed metal look as opposed to the polished chrome look. And you can see that the specular highlight, basically the entire metallic surface is a lot brighter. And like I mentioned, the specular highlight is a lot more evenly distributed across the entire object. Whereas here, you notice it's very, very smooth looking right here. Whereas this one looks a little bit rough around the edges. And, choose your own style, whatever your weapon of choice is. If you like to go for the blinged out chrome or the more professional looking brushed metal, that's how you can achieve it, by messing around with the auto convert specular and glossiness values. So let's go ahead and stop that right now. And let's move on to our NK shader. So I'm going to go to our projects here, and I'm going to load up this safe. We don't need to save this right now. You can see you have a completely white safe and some white bars of something and some silver coins of, oops, I guess I kind of spoiled it there. Let's go ahead and give this a quick render and see what it looks like. You can see here we get some nice bling values again here. We get some nice gold bars, some coins. I kind of spoiled this before. I'm spoiling all these materials before I'm showing you. And we have this safe right here. The safe is a mystery material. Let's go ahead back into iClone and take a look. So I'm going to select the safe here first of all, and let's go into our Indigo shaders, and let's go up to our materials, and you can see that we have the preset Phong NK2, and we have this one selected as copper right here. So you can assign the Indigo shader, you can assign any of these ones here. With the V2 in the top right corner, that's the version 2, so these will be a bit more accurate than the version 1. And again, you don't have to choose copper, you can choose anything from calcium fluoride to cobalt to lithium to lead sulfide, silicon, chromium, all sorts of elements that I've never really heard of. But basically, these are physically accurate shaders to represent, different materials such as gold and silver and everything like that. And if I select, the bars, like I kind of spoiled it before, these bars are made of gold and the coins are made of silver. So say, for example, we can also mess around with this. If we wanted our copper safe to look a bit more brushed, again, we have our exponent value. You can mess around with that. You can change the exponent to something like, change that to 100 instead of, 10, which is super low. This one might look a little bit better. And there we go. So we got the value of 100. It doesn't look as white and kind of plasticky as the other one. So this is the value of 100 again instead of 1,000. So this is the value of 100 versus the value of 1,000 exponent value. So obviously this one looks a lot smoother, and the other one here looks a lot more like brushed and rougher surface right here. We'll just go ahead and close that one. And again, you can select any element that you can find on the periodic table of elements, and they're all in this drop-down menu right here. So let's move on to Glossy Transparent. I'm going to load up another project here, a couple of bottles for you. We don't need to save that. And right here, I'm just going to go ahead and render this really quickly. You can see we have two identical bottles here, and these bottles are identical in every aspect. But take a look at the way they render in Indigo. You can see the one on the right is a lot different. We get a little bit more absorption going on around the neck of the bottle here, as well as along the bottom of the bottle. And the label looks a lot clearer. Let's go back into iClone really quick. Oops. And I'm going to take a look at both of these. You can see in our materials that this is the cap right here. The diffuse color is red. We have no diffuse map or anything like that. And the body of the bottle there is just a diffuse map with a label on it. And down here is the green color. So we have no specular, no glossiness values. Basically in Indigo, this one is auto convert. Oops, we need to select the material there. So this one is Glossy Transparent Frosted Glass version 2. This one is Frosted Glass version 1. Now you can see that there's a couple of different values on these two, mainly the gain value on the bottom there. So the gain value is because the Frosty Transparent or Frosted Glass Glossy Transparent version 2 has a medium, which the version 1 doesn't have. Let's go back into Indigo and take a look at these two bottles here. So let's take a look. Let's pick the material, and let's pick this one on the left right here. You can see we have Glossy Transparent, the medium right here. If we select the medium, basically we have our values right here. We don't have any sort of map right here. We just have our regular absorption layer. Let's go back here. And you can see in our absorption layer on the surface, if I select this, you can see we have the label and the diffuse channel and the diffuse color have kind of been blended into one surface layer. So that's the difference basically. I'm just going to go ahead and stop this right now. The version 1 only has an absorption layer, whereas the version 2 actually has a medium as well. And you can see right here that there's a bit more thickness around the bottleneck. If I select the material right here, you can see basically right here, we just have our absorption layer. It's only the diffuse channel right here. So we only have that label, which is more accurate because that's why the diffuse color is not blending into the actual label, because we only have a single absorption layer on the top, and that's our diffuse channel. Whereas if we go into our medium right here, you can see we have similar values pretty much, but our absorption layer is kind of purple. And this is a complementary color to the actual color of our object. So let's go ahead and change this to something like, blue, for example. Whoops, we need to keep this rendering for now. So again, we're just going to render this, and you can see now that I changed it to blue, the material is purple. And if I change it to something like red, we can expect it to be blue. And, green would be purple, red. I'm not really good at this, but, if we wanted some sort of wine, I think we would probably go with a, color like this. All right, there we go. We at least got some cherry wine going on there. So again, it's the complementary color, and this is the medium right here that is absorbing all this stuff right here. And if you want to have a darker medium as well, if you want the medium to be absorbing more, then again you have to go into here, and you have to increase your gain. So if I increase my gain from like 2 to 5, for example, we'll get a lot more of a stronger result. And if I decrease that from 5 to 1, we'll get barely anything. So the medium is not really absorbing any light. The light is just essentially passing through it. Whereas here, it's absorbing. Basically, the red light is the stuff that's reflecting back, and we get this nice kind of maybe brandy. I don't know what kind of cherry liquor this is or something like that. But that's how you can. That's the reason the V2 Glossy Transparent is a lot better than version 1, because we have that diffuse layer on top. We have the medium where you can notice changes in depth in your objects, such as in the bottom around here and the top around there. And basically this version 1 is just a surface absorption layer where everything's blended in together. And that's why version 2 is a lot more accurate. You'll get something a lot better. Maybe the color, we'd want to decrease the color a little bit, make it a little bit lighter so we can see the label there. But that's about it. So that's pretty much your Glossy Transparent in a nutshell there. Let's go ahead and move on to specular values now. So I'm going to load up another project here. I'm going to load in this Specular Glass 03. Let's go ahead and just load that up. And in this project, what you'll see our funky-haired Gwyn just blowing a bubble right here. And let's take a look at what this looks like when we rendered Indigo right away. Just remember that these bubbles here are Specular V2 shaders. And we'll see what that looks like in just a moment. So you can see it starts out like, specular, obviously. When you get that, kind of symphony of colors there, it's a specular shader because it's kind of, going transparent. It's calculating all the rays of light passing through the transparent surface. And here you can see that we have, some nice bubbles, and we get the transparent, you can see the tree in the background and the lamppost or whatever it is, and you get all the bubbles and everything like that. They're transparent. So let's take a look at the shader in iClone. So in iClone here, we need to go into our hierarchy here. Heidi, Phong NK, there's the pipe, and we have the root node, which is basically this big bubble right here is the root node. And you can see that we have a Specular Glass V2 shader right here. And the difference here is that we have transparent selected. If I decide to, take transparent off and take architecture glass off, let's go ahead and see what happens here when we give this a render. So with this one rendering here, what'll happen is it'll look like she's kind of blowing a bubble of pure metal, like the Terminator or something like that. Let's go ahead and take off this other render right here. Just want to save some resources. So again, we'll go back to the metal blowing Heidi right here, and it's probably not realistic unless they're, like I said, some kind of Terminator or something. So let's go ahead and pick this material, pick this bubble right here, and see what's happening. First of all, back in iClone, you can see that we have this option for transparent, which I turned off. So if you don't have transparent, basically you're just going to have a really high specular reflection. You're pretty much going to have a very reflective Phong shader, which is a very normal specular highlight. And if you click the transparent, you're going to have a transparent surface right there. And if you select architecture glass, basically the architecture glass is going to ensure that your medium, there's no medium. Basically it's just going to have a transparent surface around everything. So let's go back into Indigo, and I'll show you the values in Indigo as it's a little bit faster to kind of switch between. Here we have this chrome bubble, and we have the same values here. So we have transparent, architecture, glass. So if I select transparent, again, if I only have transparent selected, you can notice it looks a little bit different because, like I mentioned, architecture glass has the basically the thin hollow surface around your entire object. This one still has a medium inside of it. So this is kind of the way the mesh works, and we're getting this weird reflection off this bubble right here. Whereas if we select architecture glass, we're only having a thin layer. So basically this whole bubble is hollow. Whereas if we don't have architecture glass on, it's going to have a medium. It's going to be reflecting off that entire bubble. So it's almost like a bubble of water or something like that, for lack of a better substance. So that's the architecture glass right there. So if you're creating a bubble like this, you get that nice reflection off of it and everything like that, depending on where your lighting is and everything. And you'll definitely want transparent. You want architecture glass. Now, single face is a whole nother ball game right here. Single face is used for one-sided objects, or rather single mesh objects. So if you've used iClone for a while, you're familiar with some meshes or some objects, especially when you import them in from SketchUp or something like that, will have single faces. There'll be single mesh objects, and the normals will only go one way, which means if you turn your camera around and look at the object from the other side, you're not going to see it because it only has a single face. So if you select this single face option right here, it's not going to show much of a difference in here, but basically it's going to make the architecture glass a little bit thicker, so we're going to get a bit more reflection going on here. And again, if you want that reflection to be even higher, you can increase your IOR as well. But the single face glass is basically it's going to create the same material on both sides of your mesh. So if you have a single mesh object, it's transparent on one side, whereas you can have the glass on the other side, or any sort of object on the other side, or any sort of material on the other side. If you select single face, it's going to have the glass appear on both sides. So you're gonna get a bit of a stronger reflection. You can see we get a nice reflection right there, which we didn't see before. Like I mentioned before, it's still hollow, but the medium is just a little bit thicker because we have that basically mesh on both sides. And so that's why we're getting a bit of a thicker reflection. So let's go ahead and stop this right now. I'm going to show you a quicker example of that just by loading in these specular glass balls right here. Oops, we need to load it into the proper program there. There we go. Load these into iClone. You don't need to save this for now. Alright, so we have these specular highlight balls right here. Let's go ahead and give this a render and see what it looks like first of all. And I think we can just go ahead and close this one down, so we don't have too much stuff rendering at once. Okay, so you can see on the left we get a very reflective surface. In the middle it looks like we have sort of a rubber ball going on, and on the right it looks like just your basic, really transparent. This is kind of what architecture glass looks like. So let's go ahead and pick the materials and see what we got. So on the right hand side here, you can see that we do indeed have architecture glass, and that's making basically the entire thing hollow. So it's almost like a balloon. In this case, a red balloon. That's what it would look like when rendered in Indigo. If I took off that architecture glass, we're going to have again the appearance of sort of like a marble or a rubber ball or something like that. And this is kind of the appearance that you're going to have. So if you want to recreate a marble, you don't want architecture glass. But if you're recreating a balloon, you would want to have that on. And if I select architecture glass and single face, notice that basically the entire thing becomes transparent, because what we're having is the transparent on both sides. There's no medium at all in this. It's just basically architecture glass all around, and we have no absorption layer or anything like that. Just your architecture glass everywhere and basically see-through. We get a little bit of reflection off the top, a little bit of reflection off the bottom, but that's about it. Let's pick this material right here and take a look at this one. You can see this is transparent. Again, pretty much the same thing as the one we had on the right, whereas if I pick this material over here, transparent is set to off. And again, so it's non-transparent, it's just a specular metallic ball. If we change it to transparent, we get the same thing right here on the other side. Let's go ahead and stop this for now. I'm going to show you one final project here, which is a kind of a cool looking mirror. If you've ever wanted to create a mirror in Indigo, this is pretty much how you do it. So here we have this nice mirror. If I select it and I go to our Modify tab and Materials, you can see all we have is just a reflection map right here. If I decrease that, the strength, you can see that's our reflection map right there. And you know, there's basically nothing in the mirror right now. But if you recall, I have the reflection map, so that's going to be a very, very, you know, high specular value. It's going to be super, super reflective, like we saw in the very first example. So if I go ahead and I render this, take a look in Indigo, you can see, whoa, suddenly this creepy looking face appears in the mirror, and that's because we have a super high a reflection value of 100, and that's going to be our reflection in the mirror of Heidi. So if I go back to iClone here, and I just zoom out a little bit, boom, there's Heidi looking in the mirror right there. Now again, we don't really need this you know, reflection map. Even if we take the reflection map down to 0, we're still going to have that, you know, super high specular glass value right here. So this is just basically your mirror value. So you can just assign it this V2 specular glass V2, and that's just going to be a mirror. If we, you know, modify this, even with the reflection value, if we, you know, trash the reflection map and everything like that, and go ahead and render it, you'll see that Heidi's creepy face will still show up. She's just trying to give us a shock by appearing suddenly in the mirror. So you can see the same result right there. That looks kind of creepy to me. I don't know about you guys. Anyways, that's how you can, you know, create a cool looking mirror with your Indigo renders. And as you can see, I think we can go back to the one that's rendered a bit longer. Right here you can see the result a little bit better right there. So that's how you can, you know, use a specular shader to create a cool looking mirror in iClone, rather in Indigo, using the iClone render. So that's basically it for this tutorial on the differences between the V1 and the V2 shaders. Hopefully you guys learned something about you know, converting, auto conversion, the glossy transparent, and all the version 2 shaders. So I encourage you to go out there and have fun using those, and I'll see you next time.